Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here today. We're going to dive headfirst into the architecture of our own nervous systems and really unpack exactly how chronic stress and trauma physically reshape our bodies and our brains. But more importantly, we're going to look at the hard science of how we can rewind that clock and actually rewire ourselves for safety. So if you've ever felt chronically overwhelmed, stuck on high alert, or maybe just completely numb, well, this explainer is going to make so much sense of what you've been experiencing.
To kick things off, I want you to imagine something for a second. You're taking a beautiful, peaceful walk through the woods, and suddenly, you cross paths with a massive mother bear protecting her cubs. Instantly, your heart races, blood pumps to your limbs, and your body gears up to either run for your life, fight, or play dead. That is a brilliant, completely natural survival response. But here is the twist I want you to think about. What happens if you're forced to live in those woods with that exact same bear every single day of your life? What actually happens to your brain when the threat literally never leaves?
Well, that question forms our roadmap for today. We're going to quickly cover 1. The bear in the woods. 2. The 4 trauma responses. 3. Rewiring the stressed brain. 4. Body-based emotional regulation. And finally, 5 somatic healing exercises.
Okay, let's jump right into part 1, the bear in the woods.
Let's really dive into this. Our nervous systems are beautifully, perfectly wired to protect us from immediate life-threatening danger. When we encounter a threat, our brain just flips a switch. It diverts all our energy away from things like digestion, critical thinking, or social connection, and channels it entirely into immediate survival. But we have to draw a really clear line between that normal, healthy threat response and chronic dysregulation. See, a healthy response is short-term. Your body gears up, the bear leaves, you shake it off, and your nervous system returns to a nice, regulated baseline of calm. However, when exposure to a threat is prolonged, like say growing up in a highly dysfunctional or abusive household, the nervous system gets locked into that survival state. And this is exactly how complex PTSD develops. When a developing brain is 100% focused on just surviving the bear, it quite literally doesn't have the fuel left for learning, creativity, or emotional regulation.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 4 trauma responses.
Now, when we face that bear, our bodies don't politely ask for our permission on how to react, right? They just automatically deploy one of several natural survival responses. And understanding this is absolutely crucial for self-compassion. What's really fascinating here is just how natural these responses are in the animal kingdom. There is absolutely no shame in your body's attempt to keep you alive. You might fight by making yourself look larger and yelling. You might take flight by running away. You could freeze to just blend into your environment and avoid detection. Or you might fawn by playing dead or placating the threat until it simply loses interest. In humans, these wild survival instincts translate directly into our everyday behavioral traits.
Let's look a bit closer at 2 responses that often get really misunderstood: freeze and fawn. In adult life, a chronic freeze response might look like emotional numbness, intense brain fog, apathy, or even chronic digestive issues. It's a state of profound dissociation and helplessness. On the flip side, the fawn response often manifests as this intense, anxiety-driven urge to people-please and placate everyone around you just to avoid criticism or abandonment. Fawning survivors often become the designated family caretaker or the fixer, harboring just an enormous amount of guilt and a deep urge to rescue others at the total expense of themselves. It's a brilliant childhood adaptation, sure, but man, it becomes exhausting in adulthood.
All right, Section 3, rewiring the stressed brain. Let's talk neuroscience.
So, we understand the psychology now, but what is actually happening physically inside our heads? Let's transition from the psychology of trauma into the hard neuroimaging science of how this looks inside the physical brain, and more importantly, how we fix it. To show you this, let's look at a pivotal systematic review published in the Brain and Cognition Journal by Elsevier. Researchers basically wanted to know if secular mindfulness techniques, specifically mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, could physically alter the structure and function of the brain. They analyzed functional and structural MRI scans to see if we can actively change our neural architecture. And the results? Honestly, they are incredibly empowering. The science shows it only takes 8 weeks. Just 8 weeks of structured mindfulness training is enough to induce structural brain changes that are highly similar to those seen in people who have practiced traditional meditation for years. Isn't that wild?
And the data brilliantly illustrates exactly where those changes happen. Looking at the structural and functional views, researchers found demonstrable changes. The prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus actually showed increased activity and volume. Meanwhile, the amygdala showed decreased functional activity and actually deactivated earlier after being exposed to emotional stimuli.
Let's break down why that is such a game changer. Think of the amygdala as your brain's rapid-fire bear detector. It responds in mere milliseconds to a threat, firing up your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, is the regulator. What those 8 weeks of mindfulness actually did was strengthen the connectivity between these two specific regions. The prefrontal cortex effectively learned to downregulate the amygdala, calming the brain's rapid-fire alarm system. So you are literally rewiring your hardware to stop seeing bears that simply aren't there.
Which brings us to Section 4, Body-Based Emotional Regulation.
Now, you might be thinking, what if sitting still and meditating feels literally impossible because my nervous system is just too geared up? Well, that is incredibly common. So let's shift our focus from the brain down into the body. How can we practically physically regulate our nervous systems in our day-to-day lives? This brings us to a revolutionary concept called somatic experiencing. Developed by trauma pioneer Peter Levine, this is a body-centered method designed specifically to release trapped survival energy. It emphasizes that emotional regulation is not just a mental exercise of managing your feelings or simply talking through your problems. It's actually a deeply physiological process.
So the crucial point here is this. Trauma and chronic stress create physical sensations. Healing doesn't happen just by thinking about your memories or analyzing them to death. Healing happens by completing the body's natural trauma response through actual physical sensation and movement. You literally have to physically show your nervous system that the threat has finally passed.
And that leads perfectly into our final section, 5 somatic healing exercises.
I want to equip you with some actual, actionable tools right now. We're going to look at 5 specific somatic exercises you can use to tell your body that the bear is finally gone. Here is the sequence we'll cover: orienting, tracking, the VOO sound, tremoring, and finally the butterfly hug. These are incredibly practical ways to shift your nervous system right out of survival mode and into a state of ease. And the best part? You can do these pretty much anywhere.
Okay, exercise 1 is orienting to safety. Whenever you feel panicked, simply look around your space slowly. Seriously, just observe specific colors, shapes, and textures around you. This actively shifts your nervous system's focus from an internal threat to external safety. Exercise 2 is tracking and pendulation. Here, you scan your body for an uncomfortable sensation, like maybe a tight chest. But instead of getting stuck there, you pendulate, meaning you gently shift your attention to a completely neutral or pleasant sensation, like how your pinky toe feels on the floor. By alternating back and forth between the two, you slowly build your body's tolerance to discomfort without getting overwhelmed. Let's move to exercises 3 and 4 and see how this builds. The VOO sound is a powerful form of vagal toning. You inhale slowly and exhale, making a low, resonant VOO sound so you can actually feel the vibration in your chest. This directly activates the vagus nerve to calm the whole nervous system down. Exercise 4 is tremoring. You know, animals in the wild literally shake off trauma after surviving an attack. We can do this too. You can gently, purposefully shake your hands, arms, or legs to release that stored, trapped survival energy right out of your muscles. Finally, exercise 5 is the butterfly hug. You cross your arms over your chest and slowly, alternately tap your collarbones. While you're doing this slow bilateral tapping, you breathe deeply and focus on a soothing memory or just a general feeling of safety. This beautifully balances the nervous system and grounds your body right in the present moment. I really want you to remember this amazing quote from the source material. Healing isn't about perfection. It's about building trust with your body, one gentle step at a time. Consistent practice of these small little moments of body awareness absolutely adds up. It builds true emotional resilience and real nervous system flexibility. You do not have to fix everything overnight. Which brings us to our final thought for today. Your body spent years brilliantly learning exactly how to survive the bear. It kept you alive. But now it's time for a new chapter. Are you ready to teach your body what safety actually feels like? I highly encourage you to start using these somatic tools and proving to your brain that the woods are finally safe to walk through. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope you take these insights and begin your journey toward true physiological healing.